Someday, I'll make you proud, Lola. Real proud.
If you love listening to this show, please consider giving a rating and a review on Amazon Alexa or wherever you listen. We want to continue bringing you this amazing content, and part of our ability to do that means that we need a big audience. Now, it may not seem like much, but rating and reviewing the show will help more people find us, just like how you found this show. Simply on any podcast platform, search for a show, scroll down to the bottom, and push 5 stars. It's that easy. Thanks for supporting the show. Today, I'm joined by Lisette Gaviña Lopez, who is the 4th generation coffee roaster and a key member of the Gaviña coffee family and the marketing director at Gaviña Sons. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Scott.
So, Lisette, let's start with kind of the founding legacy, right? So, my understanding is that the coffee business that your family, your ancestors really started back as early as 150 years ago back in Cuba. So can you tell us about the founding history of the family business and some of the key milestones over the years?
Absolutely. It would be a pleasure. So as you said, my family has been in the coffee business for over 150 years. And we actually started in coffee as coffee growers in Cuba with my great-grandfather and his brother, who left to the northern part of Spain as adventurers to the Americas, and first became tobacco farmers, and a hurricane wiped out their crops, and then they moved towards the center of the island and became coffee farmers. And that's how the Gaviña family started in coffee. And my grandfather, Francisco Gaviña, who our flagship Don Francisco's brand is named after, he was born on the family's coffee farm. And that's where he learned to not only, cultivate and produce coffee, but also roast coffee. He was the one that started roasting coffee officially as a business in the 1930s during the Depression, which is a time when America was going through, very difficult financial times, and commodities were definitely impacted. And so we had a lot of coffee, and one way to vertically integrate and bring more revenue into the family was to roast coffee and also make it available to people for their homes within our province. And that's really officially when we started roasting. My family was in the coffee business almost 100 years in Cuba as both growers and roasters before the revolution, which took place in 1959. And in 1960, my family fled Cuba through Spain and eventually settled in Los Angeles. And that's where my family started their lives over as immigrants here in the United States. My grandfather, because he had, coffee had literally been his entire life. It was his dream to get back into the coffee business to rebuild the life that my family enjoyed in Cuba. And having left everything behind, it was at first all about survival, but then also trying to create an opportunity for the family to start over again. And so he was making different contacts here in Los Angeles with people that could source coffee for him, roast coffee for him, and he uncovered an opportunity to buy a roaster from actually, it might be a restaurant that you're familiar with. In the 60s, restaurants and supermarkets used to roast their own coffee. And so, but there was consolidation happening in the industry, so my grandfather uncovered an opportunity to buy the roaster from Bob's Big Boy Restaurants, which is a kind of a jewel of a restaurant chain, here in the West. And so my family went down in a rented truck, dismantled the roaster, brought it back, and assembled it in a commercial space in Los Angeles, about 1,100 square foot commercial space in the city of Vernon, which is an industrial city near the center of Los Angeles. And by Easter, my family was roasting coffee again. That was in 1967. And it was a very, very challenging at the beginning. As you can imagine, the coffee business, the coffee consumer in America is very different from the consumer in Cuba. The way that we drink coffee is espresso coffee. So it's dark roast coffee, finely ground. You're drinking a really short cup of coffee that's very, very strong and intense, which is very different from the American style of coffee, which tends to be a little bit more watered down. It was only light roasts that you could find in the supermarket at the time. And when my family started, we were really in Los Angeles. We were really catering to the Cuban community in LA, which was very small. As you can imagine, I think today we're about 60,000 Cuban Americans, and even less during that time. And so we had to learn about not only the American market, but also other ethnic groups and the types of coffees that they liked. And that's how we started to grow our business, by first learning about the Middle Eastern community and the types of coffees that they enjoy, the blends and roast colors that they enjoy. We were making coffee for that community. And then it was the Vietnamese community, which is a very important community in Los Angeles as well, which with the French influence in their culture, they like high quality, very dark roast coffees. And so we were roasting coffee for the Vietnamese community as well. And then as the gourmet coffee revolution was taking place in the mid to late 70s, early 80s, where you had gourmet coffee shops requesting single origin coffees and specialty blends, that's how we were able to start to grow more with the American market. But it wasn't until 1984 that we entered the grocery stores in Los Angeles with our Don Francisco's brand. And we uncovered an opportunity to enter the grocery stores with whole bean coffee in a bag, which today probably seems like very, very common. We go into the grocery store, we see all kinds of coffees on the shelf now, but at the time it was light roast coffee, all pre-ground in cans. So we were very unique at the time, and we really, that caught a lot of attention, and we started to grow, one retailer at a time. And today our Don Francisco's brand is our flagship brand, named after my grandfather. It's a #3 brand in the West and growing. And we are considered to be a mid-sized roaster for our industry, still 100% family owned and operated. And we're very proud to make high quality, delicious coffees.
It's such a beautiful story, and the reason I say that is, as I'm listening, there's a lot of dimensions of adaptation, right? Resiliency, survival, and really understanding the need for market fit. So in terms of adaptation, I mean, if it wasn't for the hurricane, for instance, you guys may be well known for your Cuban cigars instead, for instance, or if it wasn't for the Great Depression, you guys may have been continuing to grow or source, but not necessarily roasting. And certainly, the transition to go to Spain and then come to the States as an immigrant and starting from scratch all over again. I mean, that's a huge endeavor. And of course, coffee has gone from, costing, I don't know, a few pennies essentially, and free refills to where we are today, where, a franchise coffee latte of some sort could be worth upwards of, $8 or more, right? So it's come a long way. And I think, the fact that you guys have been doing this for 150 years, and certainly, as a current business, 52 years, really shows a lot of, testament to the resiliency and the willingness to adapt to the changing market needs and the appetite. Very interesting around the Middle Eastern taste as well as the Vietnamese taste, and just understanding, because again, I think had you guys decided to locate, let's say in Florida, for instance, I think that would have been a very different market and a different set of products. I wanted to ask you personally, in terms of, as you guys celebrate your 52nd anniversary, what does that mean for the organization, and specifically, why is that significant for you?
Well, first of all, being able to start a business and start our lives over in America, and be able to build a business to the point where you're able to make a living, and now hire up to 300 employees is just amazing, and have so many customers that choose to offer our product every single day, I think is the ultimate reward. To be able to make something that you can be proud of, that we can be proud of, that has our family name on it, and that people actually whether they're making it for their customers or making it for their own families at home, it's a product that you ingest. And coffee brings people warmth and comfort, especially, in the times that we're going through right now. People are, in fact, drinking more coffee. And so just being able to do what we do, to be focused on coffee, to continuing in our family traditions, and just to bring happiness to our community and the people around us means a lot to me personally, and also to my family. We really subscribe to the belief that as long as our success to us looks like our community and the people around thriving, if our customers are thriving, if our employees are thriving, and our family is thriving, then what else could we ask for?
Absolutely. And I'm just thinking, if we did a visual tour of your, family homes, I'm just thinking that everything from the car to the home to even the wardrobe may waft of coffee. So there's this kind of, pervasive, wonderful smell that's wafting through the air. And to that point around sustainability, I think sustainability is something that's very core to your business. Can you talk about that specifically around the Gaviña Direct Impact Initiative?
Yes, Gaviña Direct Impact is our sustainability program, and we like to say it's our commitment to premium coffee with a greener coffee footprint. And, because we ourselves started as coffee farmers, we understand the daily struggle and the difficulty of the coffee farmer. And so one of our pillars, or the main pillar of our Gaviña Direct Impact program, is our dedication to farmers, where we invest back into the coffee growing communities that we actually source our coffees from, because we believe 100% that coffee is not sustainable without the coffee farmer. And so we invest back into these coffee growing communities by providing technical assistance, helping with microfinancing, and overall just trying to improve the quality of life of the coffee farmers in the communities that we source our coffees from. Just a few years ago, it's actually, 1 year ago, this December, that we inaugurated a wet mill in Colombia in the mountains of Antioquia, where we sponsored a project to build a wet mill in this community that supports over 600 farming families. And basically, the benefit of the project is actually bringing a mill that processes the coffee closer to the farmer. So during the harvest season, the life is very, very, very difficult for a farmer. Very, very long days, very laborious. You have to, as soon as you harvest your coffee, that coffee needs to go through processing, the wet processing, or else the fermentation process will start with the coffee in the actual skin. And so what happens is that it puts the quality of the coffee at risk. And so that farmer, once they harvest their coffee, they have to get it to the wet mill and make sure that it's processed on that day. And many times farmers were, because there was no wet mill in their community, they would process the coffee themselves in their homes. And so, and not always have a place to properly dispose of the water, which now has organic materials in it because once you're removing the skin. And so this wet mill is one of the most sustainable projects in Colombia, treating all of the water that goes through the mill and helping to pay the farmer as soon as the farmer harvests the coffee and then brings it to the mill and gets paid immediately. So it saves them time, and it also helps with their cash flow and overall quality of life. So it's really a beautiful project impacting 600 farming families, and in an area that produces some of the world's best coffees.
That's a beautiful story, and again, I think it's about aligning the incentives, and then of course, ultimately, what you get is better products because of the fact that they had that accessibility in terms of proximity, and the fact that they were able to do it within the same day as well. And that results in, to your point, before it starts the fermentation, they're able to properly go through that wet process first.
Exactly. It creates sustainability because, you're helping the farmer create a quality product that we all want in our blends.
So the next kind of segment that I wanted to explore is, I think, when we think about coffee, the reason we tend to cover more coffee episodes, I think, for climate change is that there are certain things that's a predictive indicator of how the health of the planet is doing. We tend to consume, of course, water, but aside from that, there's staples of things like milk, eggs, wheat, and coffee and sugar. So coffee is a good indicator of how things are doing. And what are you seeing in terms of the changes or impact of climate change, and how is that affecting the potential outcome of the product and the quality of the coffee varietals?
Well, coffee for sure. Coffee consumption is definitely very steady around the world. The National Coffee Association releases a consumption report every year for the United States specifically. And it's very, very steady, and it's increasing in other parts of the world where, you have traditional tea communities, like in Asia, which are increasing demand for coffee overall. But in terms of the U.S. consumption is pretty steady. But one thing that does change is that the way people drink coffee is different. So there are new innovations in coffee, like the single serve coffee products, like these K-Cup compatible capsules and also the Nespresso compatible capsules that we make. And the good news is that we recently launched a program to recycle our capsules. We partnered with TerraCycle.com, where the consumer can now collect these capsules and earn points for their favorite charity. It's very, very easy, and it's free for the consumer. And we help, the consumers helping us keep our capsules out of the landfill.
Right. And maybe I need to restate my question. I think what we're really talking about is from an agriculture point of view, that the characteristics, the taste, texture, the body, the flavor, all the things that, the professional coffee tasters look for, some of those ultimately over time could be jeopardized because of changes in climate change, whether that is excessive rain seasons, or maybe long periods of drought, and that's certainly the case in parts of Africa, for instance, or just change in weather patterns that is changing the composition at the chemical compound level, the phytonutrient level of these crops, and how that is affecting the end product. What are you seeing? And because you guys, as a family, have 150 years of history, and it's interesting because we started the conversation with the hurricane. How are you seeing the weather, more broadly, climate changes affecting coffee?
Well, definitely, sorry, I started. So coffee is an agricultural product, as you mentioned, and so all of that is important. The amount of sunshine, rainfall, the soil, all of that impacts the final quality and flavor of coffee. And as weather patterns do change, that it really forces the farmer to look at how they're taking care of their farms, and even how they harvest. So if that fruit doesn't have enough time to mature on the tree, it's going to impact the flavor. They may have to harvest sooner than they normally would. But also just reinvesting back into the farm, making sure that they're, making sure that as a farmer, they have information in terms of what is the best way to maximize, given my land, the topography of my land, to maximize my crop. And also fertilizer. So as weather patterns change as well, it does cause disease in some of the plants at lower levels. And so it's very important to invest in certain fertilizers to fight certain diseases. Like Central America was hit drastically a few years ago with coffee leaf rust. And because farmers hadn't invested in fertilizing against it, it's a disease that basically impacts crops for many, many harvests. And so it required significant reinvestment in that area, which we were actually able to help through some of the technical assistance work that we did in Guatemala. But, it's definitely the life of the coffee farmer is challenging, and it's something that it's a reason why we reinvest back into the farms, trying to help the farmer and help them continue to produce high quality coffee.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the optimism in me and the hopeful in me is that there are companies that's working on lots of different areas. Others are working on, for instance, on the chemical fertilizer as well as the pesticide, where they're looking to create more natural, non-polluting types of substitutes that are more working at a microbiome level, for instance. Others are working more at the research level, trying to identify characteristics to create more resiliency within the actual plant itself, need less water, for instance, be able to handle more volatility within weather changes and temperature ranges and so forth. So all these things provide ultimately more resilient product or varietals, I should say. In terms of, as you look to the kind of the next 150 years, what is kind of that big picture that you have in terms of the coffee business?
So looking at the next 150 years, I wish I had a crystal ball, but definitely, I mean, especially when something like COVID comes that you can't predict, how is it going to impact coffee? I think coffee is definitely a resilient product. The good news is that people drink coffee in good times and in bad times. Maybe the way that they consume it is differently. And so I do believe that coffee will continue to be part of not only the American diet, but the world. It's a beverage that's relatively affordable. Although, as you said, you can spend up to $8-9 in a cafe for a cup of coffee, but it's relatively affordable. So it makes it accessible and universal to most people. And it's one of those beverages that plays so many different roles in our lives. It gives you energy, it gives you comfort, it gives you warmth, and it's frequently enjoyed with another loved one, and lovingly made for another, whether it's in a coffee shop or at home. And so I do see coffee definitely continuing to be part of our lifestyles. Most of the innovation in coffee over the last few years has been, of course, there was the cold brew trend that came out, and I think now we're starting to see that level off. And definitely single serve will continue to be a trend. Consumers love the convenience of being able to make one cup of coffee without any mess, whether it's an American style coffee or an espresso style coffee. This just brings a lot of convenience. And now with programs like the program that we initiated with TerraCycle, consumers can actually recycle these pods, which is great news. And so I think that's the innovation we'll continue to see is in how we consume the coffee, but it's definitely not going to go away.
Sounds great. How can people learn more about F. Gaviña and Sons?
So visit our website, donfranciscos.com. We just actually launched a subscription program. So if you'd like to purchase our coffee for your home, just visit our website, donfranciscos.com.
So today I've been joined by Lisette Gaviña Lopez, who is a marketing director at F. Gaviña and Sons and fourth generation. Thanks for joining today.
Thank you, Scott. It was a pleasure.
If you've enjoyed this episode, take a moment to rate our show on any podcast platform that you listen to. Scroll down to the bottom and push 5 stars. It's that easy. And as always, thanks for listening.